Without further ado, let me bring up, if I can, the first storyteller today, and her name is Lou Pollard. Please welcome to the stage, Lou Pollard.
Hello, everyone. 20 years ago, I was a very serious method actor. I was at method acting school, learning how to be an ornamental tree. And my night job was working for people who sold all the programs for all the events in Sydney. So one night I'd be at the Opera House, the next I'd be at a Metallica concert selling programs. So I had a lot of fun doing that. And I was at the Theatre Royal wrapping up from the matinee, counting the takings from the programs that had been sold for the matinee, and I had the doors shut on our little shop in the foyer of the Theatre Royal, and so I'm counting the takings, and I heard this really loud scream coming from the front of the theatre, and all I could hear was "Ah!" and this other scream, and then this clatter of like high heels on the marble floor, and I thought, I wonder if I should go out. I don't know if I should help. Went back to counting the money. Heard a whole lot of people gathering around, a sort of commotion, and I thought, oh no, I better go out. So I went out, and there was a woman who I worked with, who I didn't know well, who I actually thought, ironically enough, was a bit of a drama queen. So I thought she was quite high maintenance. That's rich coming from me. So she and I had worked together a lot at a lot of the rock concerts and things like that, but we'd never really got to know each other. I thought she was a bit of hard work. So I saw her in the foyer, tears streaming down her face, looking totally bewildered, talking to the theatre manager. I went over and I found out that she'd been parking a car near the theatre in King Street, and a guy had reached in and held a knife to her throat and demanded a handbag. So she'd been mugged at knife point in her car while she was at the traffic lights. So she'd handed over the bag and somehow parked her car and run in to start work, which obviously was not going to happen. So I thought, I should really do something to help, but I really should be counting the takings. Then my brother's voice kicked in. My brother's voice was, if someone's in need, you help them, you help them, you help them. So reluctantly, I said, look, come into the office, we'll ring the cops, we'll ring the banks, we'll ring your boyfriend, we'll do all those sorts of practical things we need to do after I'd calmed her down, obviously. I wasn't that heartless. So I comforted her, I gave her a hug, we had a chat, we called the cops came and took her statement, and I stayed with her. Then we realised that her handbag had been stolen with it had her house keys in it and her address and all this kind of stuff. So we realised we had to get her back home pretty quickly, get a locksmith, do all those kind of practical things. So in the course of that, I rang my boyfriend at the time and said, look, I'm not coming home. I'm doing something else tonight. I'm not going to that gig. All the while I'm thinking, do I really want to be doing this? Do I really want to be helping this woman? She's a bit of a pain in the bum. But my brother's voice in the back of my head is still going, this woman is in need, you go with her and you help her and you see it out and you do that. And there was no one else really available in the theatre to do that because the evening show was going to start soon and I was it for her. So even though I was doing it reluctantly, I still did it. So I sat with her and we rang the bank and we did all that. Eventually I drove her back to her house in her car, and she was incredibly shaken up. She was still teary. She couldn't be left alone. I spoke to her boyfriend and he was at a gig, so he's a musician, he couldn't come home. So there was no one who could be with her and I was it. So I thought, this is it. He's home at 2 a.m, I'm stuck with her. I'm here at her house. All the while, I've got my brother's voice in my head saying, if someone's in need, you help them. So over the course of the evening, we chatted, we got to know each other better. We opened a bottle of wine. We had a bit of a laugh. I went, this woman's all right, isn't she? Actually, we had quite a laugh. We realised we had quite a lot in common. I realised she was quite a hoot. 20 years later, she's a really close friend of mine. So I made a really close friend that night just from helping her out and doing a good deed. I found a friend because she was in need, and because I felt forced by my conscience to stick with her, I actually made an absolutely great and loyal friend that night. But all the while, it wasn't it wasn't the goodness of my heart telling me to be there. It was my brother saying, if someone needs help, you help them. When I was 22 years old, my brother got shot at point blank range in the head when he was on holiday in Thailand. Now, I got a call at about 10 o'clock at night and my dad saying, I think you need to sit down. My beloved brother has just been shot in the head. They think he might die tonight. He's heavily bleeding. He's on an island off the coast of Thailand. That's all we know. But he's still alive. But it's not looking good, so we just want to brace you for that. So the night went on. Obviously, none of us got any sleep. My brother survived the night. He didn't bleed to death, and the reason he didn't bleed to death was because these two strangers, complete strangers, saved his life and kept him alive that night. He was followed. He was on holiday. He was followed by two young guys on a motorbike, and because he was incredibly fit, he decided he'd outrun them. So he ran away into the middle of the island where there were a whole lot of bushes and thought that he'd escape from these guys. And he thought he'd got rid of them, and he turned around and they shot him in the face. And the bullet went in here, exploded on impact in his face. And every neurosurgeon who sees my brother's x-rays or scans of his face just goes, why aren't you dead? Why aren't you a quadriplegic? We can't quite believe it. There's pieces of bullet this far from his brain and this far from his spinal cord. The luck involved is just extraordinary. That he was at the right angle at the right time when that bullet went into his head and exploded. He should be dead or he should be a quadriplegic, and he's not. So that night, he said some incredible force told him that if he fell down, he would die. So he said when the bullet went in, he fell to the ground, and these young guys came and took his bag from him and ran away. And he said he remembers thinking, if I lie down now, I'm dead, I'm gone. And he said there was blood gushing from his face, like pouring down. Later, apparently they wrung his shirt out with the blood that had drenched his clothes. So he said he got up and he thought, I've got to get back to the cafe that I saw, and it was about two kilometres down the road. I think because he was so fit, he survived that trip, bouncing off the bushes, falling on the ground, trying to get back up. He ran into this restaurant, and the Thai waiter who was in the restaurant saw him. He had drinks in his hand. He took one look at my brother and he vomited on the spot, apparently. Bit of a dramatic entrance. And this beautiful couple, these Americans who were sitting having dinner, total strangers, looked at my brother and said, this guy's going to die, we've got to help him. So they went over and they helped him. They ran back to their hotel room. They got a mattress. They lay him down. They thought he was going to die of blood loss. They got him on the back of a truck to a clinic on the island, and they kept him alive. And basically, there were no doctors on the island at the time. There was a nurse who said, we've got to keep this guy alive. He's lost so much blood. If he loses consciousness, we're going to lose him. We've got to get him to the mainland, but we can't do that till the ferry comes in the morning. You guys have got to stay with him all night and keep him alive. And these two total strangers kept my brother alive. So that's why when Ant ran into the theatre, something said to me, help this woman, she's just been mugged. It wasn't me, it was my brother. That night changed my family's life. Actually, not long after my brother got shot and survived, my mother's car got stolen. And I went into the police station to pick it up when they found it, and the cops said, your mother didn't really seem to care about the car. I said, oh, we don't care about cars in my family. People are the only thing that matters to us now. My brother should have died and he came back. So the funny thing is now I work for a charity in children's hospitals making kids laugh. I'm a clown doctor. My brother in Melbourne now works for a charity, and my sister helps people come back from brain injuries. She does rehabilitation. So this good deed, these people saving my brother's life, had such a ripple effect in my family that 24 years later, we're all, for some reason, working in charity work, and all four of us actually have realised that life is precious and life is short, and all because of the good deed of a stranger. So thanks. That's my story.
is a stand-up comedian as well as a very funny clown doctor, and as she said, she's at Westmead Children's Hospital.